Hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, okay.
Yes, sir.
Jitesh sir has taken your class last time, and I came to know that he was the last thing that he taught you was this slide, areas of cooperation, and then you saw this video on TED Talk. So we will start from slide number 17 today. Okay. So is there anything you'd like to ask me regarding the previous class? If that is so, you can ask me now, or else we will start with the class. Okay, let's begin then. So, is carbon tax a viable alternative? So, you have been looking into what is carbon trading, what are carbon credits, what does it mean by a carbon positive country, what does it mean by a carbon negative country. We have looked into all those things. So, now let's talk about carbon tax. Uh, so, which country emits uh, more pollution, a carbon positive country or a carbon negative country? Just a simple question, just to check whether you have understood the meaning of a carbon positive and a carbon negative country. Which country will uh, be the reason for more pollution, carbon positive or carbon negative?
Carbon positive.
Okay. Uh, will a carbon negative country be responsible for pollution, air pollution? Will a carbon negative country be responsible for air pollution? Are they causing pollution? That's the question. They are, they are absorbing greenhouse gases. So,
No, sir,
uh,
the amount they release in air, they absorb more than that.
yes, so that's the point. Okay, so you've got the idea. So, carbon positive countries should be taxed or not? That is basically the question. The carbon tax is a specific tax on the consumption of goods which cause carbon dioxide emission. So, should you be taxed for it? The system of controlling carbon emissions and other forms of atmospheric pollution, by which an upper limit is set on the amount given, on the amount a given business or other organization may produce, but which allows further capacity to be bought from other organizations that have not used their full allowance. Seems like a very complicated sentence. No, but if you just break it down, you will be able to understand. So it is a system of taxation, of controlling carbon emission. How will you control? An upper limit is set on the amount given, on the amount a given business or organization may produce. How much carbon emission is allowed, that is set. Okay, but then again, if some company or organization is not able to cap their pollution to that upper limit, then they will be taxed. Okay, and that allows further capacity to the other organization that have not used their full allowance. So if the, it's like carbon trading only. similar thing. Okay? A company which pollutes more will pay tax, and those tax money will be given to those companies who are producing less. Okay, because in order to produce less carbon dioxide, you need to spend money. Where from will you get money? Those who are spending, or those who are taxed, they are going to pay you to reduce further emission of carbon dioxide. Okay, so it's in this that way. Case of a carbon tax. Cap and trade is like a tax, so why not tax instead? Carbon trading is like a tax only, and carbon capping is also like preventing people from emitting more carbon dioxide. So why not, instead of doing this carbon trading thing, why not go for taxation? So if you remember, carbon trading was done in European countries, and taxation is something which is a different concept. Since carbon trading is not here in countries like India, can we go for carbon taxation? That's the question. Mandates a specific price on carbon, less uncertainty than emission trading price. So emission trading or carbon credit trading is a concept where the price or the valuation has to change from time to time. But taxation is something else. Just like we tax on
Sir,
anything,
but who collects the tax?
government will collect the tax, and they are going to
Which government, sir?
the government of the country. Government is obviously for a country. There is no other way.
No, sir. I meant in the sense that is there an organization that will supervise various countries, or will it be more of an individual country?
Obviously, country to country. There is no such thing called individual country to country. That is only possible in European Union because they have a thing called European Union, which is an organization which controls all the countries.
That's what I want to ask in terms of Asian countries.
Do we have such organization here, like European Union?
I don't think so, sir.
Then in that case, individual countries will have to do it. Plus, we are more hostile towards our neighbors compared to the European countries. So having a organization of countries is not actually possible. We can't even maintain SAARC, SAARC. I hope you know what that is. So Association of Southeast Asian Countries, something like that. Is that so?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So those countries are also not being successful in having that meet every year because of some hostilities or other. So individual countries will have to think about it. Okay. So problems with the carbon tax, obviously any idea comes with some benefits and problems. What are the chances of agreeing a carbon tax across different parts of the world? Now, if India thinks in this manner, what's the point of taxing my citizens where Bangladesh and Pakistan is not doing the same thing? I may reduce pollution, but then again, because of my neighboring countries, I am going to suffer anyway. Because whatever pollution they are going to emit, it's not going to stay within their boundary. It's going to come to India as well. So what's the point of taxation? So these are some of the challenges citizens will be asking. We are paying enough tax. How do you expect us to pay more tax because of this carbon taxation? Then how much to tax when emission of carbon are difficult to measure accurately? How much carbon emission is happening because of a certain company is difficult to measure. Then how are you going to tax them? What is the true economic cost of CO2 emission? Impact on climate change? What is the economic cost? That has to be considered. Then only you can come up with a real tax valuation. Because see, why is all these things coming into play? Because it will be estimated in terms of money. Whereas in carbon trading, it was all about how much emission has happened. So how much emission is happening is a question for carbon trading concept also. But how much tax should be imposed for a certain amount of emission is another question which carbon trading concept does not beg. But here in carbon taxation, since it will be measured in terms of money, you have to find the price of that much carbon dioxide emission, and that becomes difficult. Costs of compliance, risk of tax evasion, income tax evasion is going on already. if we bring up another taxation rule, what's the possibility that it's going to be successful? Possible regressive effects on lower income households. So obviously, any concept, anything you bring into play, if it is not supportive of the low income and middle income household, which is the bulk of uh, the country. I mean, yes, low and middle income household is bulk of the country. So then again, you are trying to bring a law which is going to harm more than do any good. These are some issues. Less certainty about the effect on quantity of emission. Okay, this will always be present. Less certainty. Unless you try something, you cannot say it will be successful or not. So all these problems come into play. Even if we can find answers to even 3 of these problems, still there could be some progress towards carbon taxation. Okay, then what else? Some more points. Countries may free ride on others' carbon taxes, that is, enjoy a reduction in CO2 emission without imposing their own tax. So one country may take advantage of it, and they may not impose any tax, whereas the neighboring country is doing so. So would countries be prepared to raise a carbon tax to reduce emission? Low price elasticity of demand. So these are some more questions that may be asked by the citizens of a country. Are you going to raise the tax year after year? And based on what calculation are you going to raise the tax? So these kind of things actually prevents us from carbon taxation. What else? Evaluating the alternatives. What else can be done? So this is all about thinking, you know. We are all thinking about what could be done so that people can be forced to reduce carbon dioxide emission. And here we are, most of the topics in this PPT is talking about organization. No individual level effort is talked about here. So level effort is something you have already studied in your higher secondary classes. What can you do? Here we are talking more about organizational level efforts. Which interventions are likely to be more effective in changing behavior, in encouraging innovation and investment, in reducing emission at the lowest cost? This is what we expect. We want people to change their behavior. We want to encourage innovation and investment. We want to reduce emission by spending as less amount of money as possible. But which kind of idea? Carbon credit, carbon trading, carbon taxation. Which kind of idea is going to help us in achieving these objectives? And what are the consequences of equity? Equity means equality among the citizens of a country. Between rich and poorer nations, is this difference going to increase or it's going to decrease? Between rich and poor or within any one country, are the rich people being favored because of this kind of taxation compared to the poorer people? You have to find answers to all these questions. And you know, these are all project ideas, research ideas on which we as researchers should focus on. Whatever specialization you are in, you can contribute to this topic in many ways. Okay, and these are some of the burning issues. If you look into the internet, you will find some researches done on this area, and you will also find some gaps. You can do your research. You might be thinking, we are engineering students, we are in the first year. What are we supposed to research on all these things? You are the perfect candidates to research on all these things. Every research outcome should not come as a research paper or a model, but if you start reading, you will start gaining knowledge. Now is your time to gain knowledge. It has got nothing to do with fetching marks that you can easily get if you give some time to this subject. But if you are really interested in doing some quality research in your future, maybe whatever projects and extracurricular activities you were supposed to do in your uh, university curriculum, you can bring up all these things. And why? Just because I'm teaching you environmental studies, I'm not telling you that take it very seriously. climate change itself is a very serious concern already. Whatever issues we are facing here in the world, out of all those major issues, climate change is one of the biggest issue we are facing. Those who are really into it, they know how dangerous it has already become. So it's your choice if you want to take it up more seriously, incorporate in your studies, in your lifestyle, in your projects, in your career. It's up to you. So the more you do, the more relevant you become to the companies. The more relevant you become in the academic field, your ideas will be more appreciated by people. So try to inspire yourself into all these kind of things. Okay. So these things actually has to be calculated. Let's say someone tells that I will bring this kind of taxation. Then the questions will be: is it going to harm the rich more, or is it going to harm the poor more? Who is going to get more taxed because of it? If you can quantify these kind of things, and if you can show that no, the poorer people are not going to suffer, if you can show it properly with the proper calculations, then probably your idea will be valued more, instead of an idea which has no validation in terms of the equity consequences. Okay, so these kind of things you can look into. Between current and future generation, which of these two generation is going to suffer more? So right now, whatever issues we are facing, our future generations are going to face more. And if we think about what will be the consequences of our action in the next 50 years, it may not be that severe as compared to what is going to happen in the next 50 years. So maybe your future generation is going to suffer more, and you and I, we are selfish enough to not think about it. So is your taxation program or whatever project you are coming up with, is it going to really help the future generation, or are you only thinking about your generation? These questions will be asked, and you should have answers to it. So how can you bring all? How can you do these calculations? This is the important thing. Between producers and consumers, who is going to get affected more? Are the producers going to affect more and get affected more, or are the consumers? You are producing a product, and you are using cheap materials or polluting materials just so you can reduce the cost of production. And finally, the consumers are getting are bearing the brunt of your production technology. This is one way. And then the other way is you are spending more money to research into technology which can produce consumable goods which are environment friendly. And finally, when the consumers are consuming it, they are not polluting the environment. So now the producers are suffering more because they have to spend more into it. But if they can ask the right price for it, if they can invest into research so that instead of making environment friendly products, they are not spending more. If they can do that, then there could be balance or equity between producers and consumers. So no one willingly takes the pain of doing all these kinds of research, because uh, the results are not immediate. So people try to take the easy way. So if you are a fan of Harry Potter, then maybe you have heard this term. A time will come when you should choose between uh, what is uh, good and what is easy. Uh, I think Dumbledore told that. I don't remember exactly. So it's not always you are deciding what is right and what is wrong. Many times we are not doing anything wrong. We are just taking the easy way, and finally it all accumulates to a situation when we have done a grave harm to the society, maybe to our friends or the environment, whatever the case may be. Easy choices are not always the right choices. It may not look wrong to you at this moment, but it is going to be harmful. So it's kind of like this kind of situation. Anyway, so what approach offers the best chance of a global program? These are very big questions. Putting a price on carbon is a necessary but insufficient condition for achieving the reduction in CO2. That is also a concern. Putting a price may not be enough. we may need to do something. Now, this final term called carbon footprint, you have heard this term also frequently in newspapers. So, a carbon footprint is historically defined as the total emissions caused by an individual, event, organization, or product expressed as carbon dioxide equivalent. So, you know what is carbon dioxide equivalent that we have seen before. So what is the carbon footprint of a certain organization? How much carbon dioxide emission, net carbon dioxide emission, uh, is because of that organization. Maybe they are also helping in absorbing carbon dioxide. They are also emitting at the same time. So what is the net value? That is the carbon footprint. Okay. So I think this is a small video. It's a 1 minute video. You don't have to. I think you can see the screen, right? Sound is not that important. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then watch the video. What is it all about?
Sir,
I guess it's playing now. Okay, so that's the idea basically here. If you are consuming energy, you are responsible for release of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. So the more you are conscious about how you are consuming your energy, the less carbon footprint you will be having. Okay, and so this brings us to an end of unit 1. We will start with unit 2 now. Okay, everyone. So this is the first PPT of Unit 2. Unit 2 is about, share this with you also. Okay. So this is your unit 2. Environmental pollution, global warming, and climate change. So we will talk about environmental pollution in general first. What are various kinds of pollutants? We will talk about it, and then we will individually discuss various kinds, starting with air pollution, and then and then water pollution. These two units were supposed, these two parts we are supposed to cover before your sessional exam, which is due from, I guess, 6th of January. Okay, so we have a lot to talk about. Let's begin then. Environmental. So I will not discuss those common statements and topics that you can easily understand by reading. Just to make this class a bit interesting, I will skip those easy parts. Okay, you will just look into it by yourself. So, very briefly, what is environmental pollution? It's a generic term which explains the pollution of various components of the environment: water, air, sound pollution, or in other words, noise pollution, land pollution, visual pollution. All these kinds of pollution can happen. Visual pollution is nothing but uh, it's a if you just compare a forest with a very dirty industrial area, you can understand what is a visual pollution. So this is a generic term, and pollution can be defined as an undesirable change in the physical, chemical, and biological characteristics of the environment. So if there is any undesirable change, the change which harms the environment, then you can call it pollution. And what are various kinds of pollutants? Any substance present in the environment in harmful concentration. See, we are not producing, most of the time we are not producing anything. Everything that you can think of is already present in the earth. Okay, whatever pollutants like carbon dioxide, or let's just talk about carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is not something which was not present. We have not created it. It was already there, but we have just increased the concentration, and because of which we are calling it as a greenhouse gas. We are calling it as a pollutant, etc. So if you increase the concentration of a certain substance to a harmful level, then you can call it as a pollutant. Okay. Various kinds of chemicals are considered environmental pollutants, which when released into the air, water, and land, it degrades the environment. How can you classify them? On the basis of existence, quantitative and qualitative, and on the basis of formation, primary and secondary. We will discuss in detail. On the basis of characteristics, from ecosystem point of view, biodegradable and non-biodegradable. So the pollutants can be classified in two ways, but on various bases we have separate pairs of classifications. Okay, so what are quantitative and qualitative? Quantitative means those substances normally occurring in the environment, and qualitative are those which do not normally occur in nature but added by man. Insecticide is a qualitative pollutant, whereas carbon dioxide is a quantitative pollutant. What is the difference? Carbon dioxide is already present in the nature. We are not creating it. We are just increasing its amount. An insecticide is a certain chemical which was never present in the environment. We have mixed different chemicals present in the environment and we have created this harmful chemical. So this is a qualitative pollutant. Okay. Primary and secondary pollutants are let's look into example which are directly emitted from the source, and these are formed from the primary pollutants. So maybe there is a pollutant which is directly emitted by the industry, and then when it reacts with some other chemicals, some other pollutant in the atmosphere, it gets mixed up and it forms a secondary pollutant. Okay, so these are both pollutants obviously, but the source or yes, basically the source is different. Okay, directly emitted from industries, it's a primary pollutant. If multiple pollutants mix up and become a new pollutant, then it is a secondary. Okay. Then let's look into this example. Nitrogen oxides, hydrocarbons are two primary pollutants. Okay, these are primary pollutants. Nitrogen oxides and hydrocarbons. Now, in the presence of sunlight, they react to form peroxyacyl nitrate or PAN. They also form ozone. These are all pollutants, but these are not directly emitted by the industries. These are emitted by the industries. And finally, they react in presence of sunlight to form this kind of pollutants. So these are primary pollutants and these are secondary pollutants. This phenomenon of increased toxicity by chemical interaction is called synergism. Okay? The conversion of a primary pollutant to secondary pollutant is called synergism. So here is a picture which shows you various examples of primary pollutant and secondary pollutant. We have nitric oxide, nitrogen dioxide. Okay, but when they react with other chemicals, they can form nitric acid, they can form ammonium. We have sulfur dioxide as primary pollutant, but when they react with more oxygen, they can also form sulfur dioxide. What else? On the basis of characteristics, biodegradable and non-biodegradable. There is nothing to explain to you in this topic. You already know. Organic pollutants are biodegradable, whereas inorganic pollutants are basically non-biodegradable, who cannot, uh, you know, change their chemical composition and structure so easily. So they stay in the environment in their primary form for long. Okay, and they keep polluting. Sources of environmental pollution. There are some natural sources also, not just the man-made sources. There are some natural sources also. So volcanic eruption, forest fire, dust storm in the desert areas, pollens from plants, cysts and spores. These are also some of the unwanted matters, but these are not that much harmful. Forest fire is, yes, obviously harmful. They emit a lot of carbon dioxide because they are burning trees to emit carbon dioxide. But then again, many a times forest fires are also man-made because we are some way or the other responsible for it. But if it starts automatically, then yes, you cannot call it as a man-made source of environmental pollution. Okay then. And what are the man-made sources? Anthropogenic sources, another term. Urbanization, industrialization, vehicular pollution, population explosion, overuse of materials also lead to environmental degradation. Unscientific agricultural activities, deforestation, nuclear explosion, explosive mining, and quarrying activities. These are all sources of environmental pollution that are man-made. Okay. What else? Types of environmental pollution. We will start with various types in the next class. We will start with air pollution first. Then we have water pollution, land or soil pollution. Then solid waste. Solid waste is also a part of land pollution. I don't know why it's separate. We will see later. Noise pollution and radioactive pollution. So our primary focus will be on air, water, and land. And yes, obviously, solid waste. We will look into all these things. Start with all these things in the next class. Before your sessional exam begins, we have to complete air pollution and some parts of water pollution. So that's the mandate. Let's see how much we can cover. So that will be all for today. And now, do you have anything to ask me? Anyone? Who is this guy? Pandya, roll number 56. Yeah, that's the guy. I will note his roll number. If you are not listening to the lecture, at least do not disturb others. Okay, then that will be all. Students, you can leave the class today. We will again talk tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.